So I was reflecting this morning about the fact that we are now 20 years into IVN's history, and some of you are aware of how we started, but I'll share a little bit about that history and kind of how we've evolved since then. It really started back in 2005 with my sister-in-law, Marnie Bernard, who began initially just helping to stuff Christmas box packages for soldiers overseas, and she was joining a group of women. And while she was doing all of this, these were military spouses. She was aware of the fact that there were just lots of problems that these gals were experiencing, and she began to work with them and developed a group that eventually became known as the Twisted Sisters. And they kind of found support and collaboration together on lots of different issues. She helped them with marital issues and financial issues and legal problems and abuse problems and all kinds of issues. And eventually that led to getting introduced to their spouses who were returning shortly thereafter from Iraq and then later Afghanistan. And she began to work with those veterans as they came back struggling with PTSD and TBI and lots of financial and family challenges and a lot of other issues as well. And so she worked with them, and she's not a veteran, and she's older and kind of a short, firm gal, and she kind of had this gift to just be able to talk with people and get to know them, and had really good instincts on where to go for help. And I think Mitzi would probably concur that she was one that basically did not take no for an answer in virtually any situation. Would you agree, Mitzi?
I completely agree.
Yeah. And so Mitzi worked very closely with Marnie for a while, and they commiserated together on lots of different things. And later, as she began doing a lot of this work, helping guys with suicide issues and substance abuse, working with veterans who had been incarcerated, and working with the Justice Court and other things. Mitzi got involved through her police work, and then later through IDVS. And eventually Marnie became just somebody who literally saved dozens of lives. And we really, I don't think, knew the extent or the depth of her penetration into this population until she passed away in 2023. And she wound up, we had a memorial service, and she wound up being honored by lots of vets who came to that ceremony over at Veterans Park and just stepped into the circle and told their stories. And we had no idea. As family members, we just had no clue how much she had really just poured herself into that work and made such a huge difference and impact in people's lives. And so, as we watched her from afar, my wife Carrie and I were interested in what she was doing, and she would call me from time to time, and especially to talk about Marine issues because I'm a Marine, and she knows that we're kind of a special breed. So she would call me and talk to me about things that she was going through with different Marines, and I enjoyed those conversations that I had with her, but I just watched that really from afar and didn't have much personal contact with it until we got to 2020. And late in 1999, we began to feel very strongly about coming to the Boise area and getting ready to retire. I had a couple of years left to work, and we thought on it, we prayed on it, we just kind of really worked through how that would all look. And my wife is from the Emmett area, so coming back to the Boise area was really kind of coming home for her. But we'd been here quite often to see family and loved the area and thought it'd be a great place to land and get ready for retirement. So we would have some roots here before we actually did retire. So in 1999, in December, we put that plan together, and we wound up
That
selling
20,
a home that. Go ahead.
2019. You,
Sorry, 2019 is what I've said that before.
yeah.
And yeah, that's a little misleading. 2019 is what I mean. And so in April of 2020, right as COVID was exploding, we pulled in with our truck and movers and landed in Eagle, and and the place was a ghost town, and we uh, we could not meet anybody or do anything really, and so we can kind of set to just getting our home in order and traveling around a little bit and getting ready to work. And eventually we sat down with Marnie and kind of got caught up on what she was doing and how things were working. And I realized then that I would probably be involved in IVN at some point, but likely not until I actually retired. So we continued to follow along with what she was doing. And then after after we watched this for a while, I got to working, worked for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and then in October of um, 2023, Marnie got sick and died in 5 days. And when the family found her at home, we realized that all of a sudden we had a big question mark as to whether or not IVN would continue and how that would look going forward. So I immediately got on the board with one of Marnie's sons and tried to figure out, what was going on and how the mission might continue. And about 2 weeks into that, I got a phone call from Mitzi, who invited me to go to lunch with her. And I didn't know who she was really, kind of knew a little bit, but didn't really know her. And so I went to lunch with her, and after a little bit of small talk, I said to her, "So why are we here? Why am I here?" And she held up her phone and said, "This is why." And she showed me a text thread that she had saved on her phone between Marnie and her about 2 or 3 months previous. Is that about right, Mitzi?
Yep.
And they were talking about how difficult the work was and how hard it, the demands and the emotional struggle of just keeping up with everything. And Marnie was saying to her, I'm really tired and just kind of beat down here, and but I think I know who my replacement is. I think it's my brother-in-law. He's a Marine, and I think he'd be perfect for the job. And at that point, Mitzi said something like, "Well, that's fine, but I'm going to have to interview him first." And then she turned to me and said, "This is why we're here." And so we had that
This is your
interview.
interview.
Yeah, we had that interview, and it was great. And I kind of realized in that moment that this is a pivot point for me, and so I jumped in all in, and within a few months became the executive director, and then in January of 2022 decided to retire about a year early, and set to the work of kind of transitioning the organization. And so IVN went through this transition at that point about 3 years back now, where we kind of ended the really intense kind of one-on-one interactions that Marnie was very well known for and very effective at, and decided to put our efforts into becoming a really kind of mainstream veteran community support organization that both developed revenue that we could deploy, and then deploy that to offer financial assistance to veterans for all sorts of primary needs. And by primary, I mean things like rent and power bills and vehicle repairs and temporary housing, those kinds of things that come up that many veterans struggle with, and those things that prevent them from being able to go to work or to take care of their families. And we try to help them get back on the rails and keep up with their obligations. And we've been about that for the last 3 years, and it's been an awesome time for us. As we've done that, we've gotten involved in some larger issues and things that we'll talk about in a minute, that we've been able to launch kind of throughout the Treasure Valley and also statewide, and those have been great great missions for us as we've moved along in our history. And I'm trying to click here to get another slide, but don't seem to be frozen. There we are. So how does IVN help veterans? Well, there are four primary ways here. And the first is to assist veterans through peer-to-peer interaction, crisis intervention, direct financial aid, and service and support. And in every case, when we help a vet, we just ask them to go out and lift another brother, just help them out. And so in these interactions that we have through peer-to-peer support, when we intervene in crisis situations, when we disperse financial aid or help somebody in any way, it's always about trying to have them pay it forward and move on. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's a slide of George Nichols standing there with my beautiful wife, Carrie, and George is a major player in the early days of IVN. Some of you know his story about his encounter in the Middle East, being blown up in his vehicle and being the only survivor of a team of 4 in his vehicle. He got back here to the States, got into a shootout with the police. I think that was down in Napa or Caldwell. Is that right, Mitzi?
Actually, it was here in Boise.
Oh, here in Boise, yeah.
Oh.
And survived that and wound up in jail. And when Marnie found out about it, she was quite upset with the police department, and she actually sent a scathing email to Chief Mike Masterson at the time, and said, well, basically said, you're an idiot. Do you realize who you've got in your jail? You've got a decorated veteran and somebody who really needs our help, and now he's in jail, and so we want to help him and get him freed up and get him the help that he needs. And Mike Masterson, to his credit, actually said to Marnie, well, why don't you come in and talk to me about this and help me understand how we can help him and what the issues are. And so she began to dialogue with him, which led to the establishment of Veterans Court and some other things that I think, Mitzi, you were involved in that while you were in the police department, even at that time, weren't you?
Actually, no, joining forces had been going on for about 3 years before I discovered it was happening right in my own backyard.
Oh, got it. Okay. All right. So, so George came out of jail and got a lot of help from our organization and primarily from Marnie. And then as he began to heal and things got better for him, now we know that, you know, he's been an integral part of Wyakin Foundation for quite a number of years. In community outreach, he's run a scholarship program that we've participated in for a couple of years in a row now, and now he's been promoted to a bigger position in Wyakin and has helped just hundreds of vets that have come through their program. And he's a classic example of you know, making an investment in a veteran who can then wind up paying it forward and lifting other people in the process. The other slides there that are on this, or pictures that are on this slide, are pictures from different events that we've attended, feeding troops out at Gowan. Mitzi, I think you were with us out there in that Wilder shot with all the guys clustered around in a field, kind of snowy and cold, and we went out and cleaned up a property with some of the Special Forces guys out there and other veteran leaders. Just a great event where everybody came together and helped make something happen for somebody who couldn't do it for themselves. And the other slide on the right is, or the picture on the right is of a veteran who needed a new set of tires and just couldn't make it happen. So when the veteran standing next to the vet in the blue shirt, he called us up and said, hey, can you help us? And we contacted a shop out in their area, and they agreed to discount the tires, and we paid for them. And the veteran helped the older vet get the tires put on his car and on his way, and just got him some wheels that worked again. So those are the kinds of things that go on in our world, and there's lots of moving, there's ramp building, there's referrals to agencies for all kinds of other help and services. But primarily, we're just trying to be there as a safety net when the call comes and somebody says, "Hey, we need some help over here. Can you help?" And sometimes it's physical labor, sometimes it's writing a check, but always it's a labor of love for the veterans who are in need. The second thing we try to do is be a force multiplier by helping veterans leverage existing services and organizations best equipped to help them with their needs. We truly do believe that we're stronger together. And one of the things that Mitzi and I discussed early on when I came on board with IVN was we're not interested in recreating the wheel in any sector of veteran support. If somebody's doing something really well, then we're going to use them and lever them as a resource and send people to them. And I guess a case in point here would be back to Wyakin. We are big believers in education and educational pursuits for veterans. So we've a couple years in a row donated $5,000 along with several other organizations to the Wyakin Foundation because they already had an apparatus in place to process applications and applicants and allow us to participate in awarding scholarships, which we've done in those years, 15 $1,000 scholarships that we gave out to individual students who were pursuing their academics with various organizations. And so that's become a great opportunity for us because we don't want to recreate that apparatus and we don't want to go through all the process of the application documents and process, but they do it well. And our money's gone there along with several other organizations, and we hope to expand that in the future. So that's been a great opportunity for us. And there are many more organizations that do things well in their own areas. And we participate with them a lot in different pursuits that come before us. Third, we do connect Idaho veterans through publishing a semi-annual edition of the Idaho Veterans News. And that's a newspaper that's featuring stories of fellow veterans and support organizations and lots of stories about military culture and experience. And it's completely dedicated to our military community. We publish, I don't know, we're up to 8,000 or 10,000 issues, copies of the paper now, and they go all over the state. And our distribution is increasing, and we're trying to penetrate VFWs and American Legion posts and other organizations that are out in more rural areas so that we can get the newspaper to those places. And we also want to hear about, what's going on in different places. Our last issue was about St. Marie's and what's going on up there. And Mitzi, you want to just share for a moment about Hank and what's happening there?
Well, hopefully everyone has read the article in the newspaper, but we've got a veteran that there were some suicide or a suicide in St. Mary's about 6 months ago, or I'm sorry, 6 years ago. And he started asking, did anybody know this veteran? What was the situation? And everybody's like, saw him around town, never talked to him, didn't know what his deal was. And Hank Thornton said that is unacceptable. We need to know the people in our community. And so he took it upon himself to start knocking on doors, finding the veterans in the community. And fast forward 6 years, he has a vet center on Main Street in St. Mary. Started out with just a little tool shed that had been donated and offered coffee Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And now the community has come together and is actually building a building with a full kitchen, a meeting area. It's going to have a place for a VSO and things. And he's raised a lot of money for this, but so far he hasn't had to write any checks because every time somebody comes out, say to lay the footings or frame it or whatever, and he's ready to write a check, they say, "Oh, that's okay. we'll just donate our time and materials today. So it's really a wonderful success story there in St. Mary's, and we are hoping to take that model to other rural communities. We're working with Bonners Ferry right now to maybe get something similar going there because their demographics are so similar to St. Mary's. So that's going to be a 2025 goal, is to spread that across Idaho. But I do want to mention we wrote this article. It was in the paper. Like I said, Hank's gotten a lot of support, and we want to spread that message to hopefully start these rural vet centers in other areas. Because of this article, he got a phone call, and a company in Coeur d'Alene liked what he was doing and liked his story, and the CEO and some of their board drove out to St. Mary's and gave him a $20,000 check and told him to keep up the good work. But that directly came from this article in the Veterans newspaper.
Yeah. Thanks, Mitzi. Yeah, what a great story. And it's just so inspirational and something that creates a model that lots of other folks can follow. I mean, this is a guy that just went out and started knocking doors, hundreds and hundreds of doors, trying to find veterans and offer service and support to them. And it led to just an amazing accomplishment there in St. Mary's. Yeah, so we're thrilled with that. We're also thrilled with the ability to tell stories about Idaho veterans, and that's the most important thing. I've got Marilee's number at the bottom there, and her name. Marilee Marsh is our editor. She's on the call today, and jot down her phone number, because she's somebody that you can call when you have an idea about a story. We don't do open like promos or advertorials for organizations in the paper, but if you can tell a story about how your organization has impacted the life of a veteran or a group of veterans, we'd like to hear about it, and we like to tell that story. So if you can think of things that might work for the paper, we would love to hear about it. Please contact Marilee, and she'll talk with you about the potential of publishing the story. Fourth, we provide leadership and support for the veteran community, for veteran community initiatives and events. And this is kind of bigger issue, larger issues. And I think probably one of the proudest moments that we've had in the last few years is being involved in helping to get the Idaho Veterans Guide rolling. For some time, Mitzi and I had talked about, why there wasn't any kind of a digital resource guide available so that we could aggregate, what the veteran community is doing in one place, and so everyone could have access to those services, any no-cost or low-cost services that are available to veterans. And this is what we came up with eventually, and it was done through the help of Find Help, which is kind of a search engine that was born out of the medical community, and they had the engine and the ability to not only list all these organizations, many of whom were already listed with them, but to aggregate all that we brought to it, and to allow us to kind of brand this separately for Idaho Veterans Guide, and provide help in all of the different areas that you see in the bubbles on the card here, in benefits, education, social, in work, in legal, housing, and lots of other things. Now a veteran anywhere in the state, and frankly anywhere in the country, could put in a zip code and search for all the services available around them. So we constantly get calls asking about, where can I find this, or where can I find that? Who does this? Who does that? And more often than not, we refer people to IdahoVeteransGuide.org and just say, go there and run a zip code search, and you'll find everybody who's active. If your organization is not on there yet, man, please please go on and make your presence known, and then claim your organization's listing, because that's how people are going to get to you to be able to take advantage of the services that you offer. I'm going to let Marissa jump on now with, I'll stop sharing, Marissa, and you can share the most recent reports for Idaho Veterans Guide. We want to update you from time to time about how the guide is working, and she's got a current report here for us to view, I think. So let me stop sharing. Are you up, Marissa?
I think so. I just had to remember to unmute myself.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you see that okay?
I can see it.
Alrighty. So we wanted to share 3 reports with you today. This is the monthly report for January. And again, this is just giving you a quick snapshot of what's been happening on the guide. So just in January, last month, we had 52 programs added, 24 programs claimed. That means they were already listed on the guide, and these organizations found their program card, took ownership of it to make sure that data was up to date. In the pie chart down below, these are the categories that are available on the website. When you go and you type in your zip code, you'll get some category options at the top if you're not quite sure how the search is going to go. And this is a breakdown of what people have been selecting. And again, housing and food are always the big click points. The terms that you see next to it are kind of a breakdown of those categories. What are they specifically looking for with food and housing? You can see job placement is a big one, helping pay for housing, the assistance there, help find housing, and food pantries. Food pantries, there is an Idaho Food Bank food pantry locator, and that is always a consistent search on there. We also wanted to kind of share with you a comparison between last January and this January. So January 2024 compared to January 2025, we're just seeing this almost slow and steady growth of programs added and searches. Now the interactions are a little different. They're when people actually view the card, what they do with the card. The connections are what's really valuable, and I've been seeing a steady increase in that. That means people are clicking on those cards, they're connecting to those benefits or those programs that are low or no cost. So steady increase, but even if it was the same, that still means that we're adding a little more every month. That's amazing. And just a quick snapshot down there, I wanted to point out under the organizations in that little teal box, these are the most interacted with program cards as compared to January 2024, January 2025. Idaho Division of Veterans Services, where Mitzi and I are, started utilizing that. We started promoting the Idaho Veterans Guide as a way for outreach, a way to get in front of veterans, making community partners aware that they could find us on the Idaho Veterans Guide. And you can see just the progression over the year to jumping up to second in searches there, and connections and interactions on those program cards. So if you guys haven't listed your program yet, I highly encourage you to, and not only list your program, but let people know where to find you. So if you have any questions about that, just reach out and I can help get you set up. The other thing that David and I kind of talked about that we just wanted to give you a general overview. We launched in March 2023, and this is the overall progress. Now I took screenshots, so I didn't misprint anything, and you can see what I look at when I'm looking at this data when I go into the Idaho Veterans Guide. Again, these folks can go on and search anonymously, which is the most important part for us, to connect the veterans to the services. But I do want to know what's being looked for and where, while respecting that privacy. That gives us an idea of, if we see a spike in searches and food banks in a certain area in Idaho, we can maybe look at that area and say, what's happening with the food bank? Are they not able to keep their shelves stocked? Maybe then we can put out an article in Idaho Veterans Network newspaper and say they're doing great things, but they can't even keep up. And we can kind of foster that support in our community and make sure that we are targeting our support where it's needed most. And this gives us that idea of where these searches are taking place and what people are looking for, because that tells us a lot about what's needed in our community. So over these years, since March 2023, when we launched this, to January 31st last month, we've added, let's see, 118 programs. That makes me very happy. Now, some of those are national programs, but when I broke it down, it wasn't even enough to worry about. It is mostly state and local programs that we are adding. And you can see that there in the numbers, the little brown one on top, the little brown indicators, those are the national programs. So those teal ones are local and the yellow are state. And that makes me very, very happy because that means we are getting the right things on the guide. Again, the search breakdown overall through the years, it's been food, housing, and health. Mental health is a big search as well. So that's been something that I've been focused on, making sure it's listed and that we're connecting those veterans. And then again, over the couple years, Idaho Veterans Advocacy has been a huge one. This is, again, we're reaching out to community partners. It's part of a system, really an ecosystem of, we have the Ask the Question campaign for maybe organizations that don't have veteran specific resources, and we're teaching them about the Idaho Veterans Guide. And one of the first things they look for their veterans are those benefits and those community resources that take them to that next step of support and services. So that's been a huge search. But again, the Idaho Food Bank locator, services for veterans, job seekers, and one that it makes sense with a lot of the requests Mitzi gets. Idaho Power Project Share Utility Assistance. People need help with utilities. So this is what's really, really valuable to me. This is what I'm looking at on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, to know what's going on in the state of Idaho. But this has been a huge, huge asset, a huge support for our outreach. So I'm really thankful that many of us could come together in the community to make this happen. And again, if you want this listed on your website, there is a code for that. I can get that to you, and you can get it on your website. You can even change the color and the font to put that search box on your website to connect veterans to this database and these resources. So that's all I have on the reports.
Let's just look at these numbers again for a minute. In the top right-hand corner underneath program summary, 818 programs have been added. And to me, that is just absolutely astounding. Those are programs that weren't there before we started this. I think many of those belong to people right here. And the VA may have been listed, but their individual programs weren't listed before this. So we've got medical foster care, the voluntary services, those different things. And I use the guide myself a lot. I know people call me directly to find out what resources they should use, but I have the guide up on my computer screen all day long, checking it. That next box down there, 451 programs claimed. That means people like you in organizations went in, and maybe your organization was listed for one reason or another, but you've taken ownership of that. So you can go in and keep it updated. Your hours might change. You may expand your hours. You may expand your services. You can have complete control over that to make those changes. So I think that those are some pretty incredible numbers, and those are all available right at our fingertips. And I think the other thing that I've mentioned quite frequently, that we don't mention enough, is even though we're marketing it as the Idaho Veterans Guide, we show you our heat map of where people in Idaho are pulling it up. When you pull that up, there's no advertising on the site. It comes up with a place to put in the zip code that you want to search for services in. And that is good for any zip code in the United States. So it doesn't just have to be Idaho. You can put in any zip code. I've told this, I told a story recently at Joining Forces about helping a homeless veteran in Mississippi. He had previously been here in Idaho, and he couldn't find the services he needed, and his car that he was living in had caught fire and things. And he called me, and as I'm talking to him, I'm pulling up the Idaho Veterans Guide, and there was a homeless shelter that had a veterans program just 2 blocks from where he was standing while he was talking to me. So we got him connected with that. And then just this week, I had a local veteran trying to help a buddy in Texas, and he's like, I need Joining Forces resources for Texas. And I said, well, I'm not sure that they'll be quite as efficient and quick as we are, but let's pull up the Veterans Guide and check. And so he called me yesterday and said that he found some things. He did say that they were not as quick and efficient as Idaho, but he would have not known where to even start to help his buddy if it weren't for the Idaho Veterans Guide.
Thanks, Mitzi. Anything else, Marissa?
Nope, that's it for me. I'm just really thankful. And if you guys, again, need any help with this or have any questions, just reach out to me.
Perfect. Thank you. Are we back on the resource guide card?
I think it's coming up here. Just a second. Now I'm one of those people, I'm not seeing anything. Is anybody else seeing it yet?
Not yet.
Says I'm sharing, but am I really?
There we go.
Yep. Okay. All right. So again, that's just something that has kind of developed now we're in our full second year. Is that right? Yeah.
We're going into year 2 already.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're excited about that. It's been a great success and it continues to grow. And I would echo Marissa's encouragement for all of you who have a website that people visit to have a link there that allows people to search for services directly linking to Idaho Veterans Guide. It's a hugely beneficial resource for us and for everyone who gets on it. So I just encourage you to keep that top of mind.
Yeah. Dave, let me just add quickly. Our new business cards that we have for IDVS, we've put the QR code on the back. I noticed a couple other organizations have done the same thing. And even though Marissa and I are doing the back end of it, the reports, the support on it, it is a Joining Forces effort as far as everyone's involved. There's no hierarchy as far as who's going to come to the top. It's an open network for everyone to use and all the resources in the community. So we encourage everyone to participate in it.
Yeah. Can you see this little graphic here in my video window? So this is a little business card that we prepared to pass along, but this is actually what's going to be on the back of our business cards as well. And I think, Mitzi, this is what you have on the back of yours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we send that graphic out along with the slides when we send out the notes for this meeting. And then if you want to incorporate that either as printed cards or on the back of your business cards, feel free. I want to thank Marissa for managing the back end of this. I mean, IVN was a major driver in bringing this all together and helping to get it done and negotiating the deal with Find Help to make it happen. And we still manage the back end of some of the website stuff and so forth. But really and truly, it's been Marissa who's taken this thing and really run with it, become the expert on it. So if you have questions about it, you would do far better to call her about it than to call me because she's in it all the time, a lot more than I am. And we're happy that it's kind of taken on a life of its own. And as Mitzi said, this has no ownership by anybody. It's just a resource that's going to remain here perpetually for the use of the veteran community. And we'll continue to do what we do on the back end, but really it's for everyone to use. So. The second thing that we're pretty proud about is getting involved in the Idaho Veterans Wreaths program, which is new, was new last year. And that came about when Jake Faulkner over at the Idaho State Veterans Cemetery, he's the bureau chief, I guess we call him, right?
Yeah.
He began to hear stories about some folks in Texas that had begun using artificial wreaths, reusable wreaths at their vet cemetery. And so we started to be intrigued about the idea of putting those same reusable wreaths at our cemetery, our state cemetery in Boise, for the sole purpose, and this is the primary motivation, which is important, is that all of the donation revenue that we receive for reusable wreaths can then remain here in Idaho for the direct benefit of our veterans. And so Jake and I went down to Texas and we saw how they did things and tried to figure out how would we store them, where would we get them, how would we deploy that, and that led to an effort starting in July last year that was pretty intense with a lot of folks who came to the table and helped us, representing many different organizations, and pulled together the program for this past year in December. And we deployed those. Many of you were probably there at the cemetery when we deployed those wreaths. And in doing that, we made it possible for the donation revenue to remain right here in the state of Idaho. And we've already deployed funds for the benefit of veterans already this year during 2024 and into 2025. And we're set to finish the program and have all of our wreaths be reusable this December when we go back to the cemetery to lay wreaths. It's meant to, the whole ceremony and the procedure is meant to honor our veterans who have been laid to rest in the Veterans Cemetery. And formerly, we were doing that through Wreaths Across America, who continue to market their wreaths, their fresh wreaths, but it created a big problem for us in having to dispose of all of those wreaths. We couldn't reuse them because there were lots of wire and things in them. And it created quite a disposal problem and challenge for us. But in addition to that, all the money that was donated by everybody through that program never stayed here in Idaho. It went back east and it got into all kinds of projects that Wreaths Across America sponsored for different things. And so we decided that if we took that program over ourselves, we would be able to keep almost $100,000 of revenue here in the state for the use of veterans in our own area. So that came off very nicely this December. I think everybody was pretty pleased with the wreaths and the way that they looked. And we had lots of volunteers. And honestly, one of the great benefits of the whole program is that the community comes together to support their veterans. And when we see hundreds of people come for the ceremony and, I don't know, 50 to 60 people come to help prep wreaths or to pick them up, lay them down, it's just amazing to see how the community supports their veterans and loves to be involved in a project like this. So Idaho Veterans Wreaths is going to continue, but I'll remind you that it's specifically for the Idaho State Veterans Cemetery in Boise. And it may be that other cemeteries will eventually adopt the same idea, but they will have to execute it and figure out how to do it on their own. We can certainly give them a template, but they'll need to make that happen in their own areas. For now, the state cemetery in Boise will be using these reusable wreaths and storing them every year and redeploying them every year. And then as people donate each year, they're essentially sponsoring a wreath. They're not buying a wreath, they're just sponsoring a wreath and indicating that they want to donate to the cause and to demonstrate respect for veterans in the state cemetery. And we're just delighted to have that participation from the community. It's just been amazing. So, Mitzi, you want to say anything about that in addition to what I shared?
Yeah, I would like to mention if you did not make it out to the cemetery this year to see the wreaths, I know when you think artificial, you think of what your grandma had on the kitchen table, plastic and things. These are absolutely beautiful. And we actually had on the upper level, we'd had enough wreaths from Wreaths Across America that had already been prepaid that were delivered. So on the upper level, we used the fresh wreaths. On the lower level this year, we used the artificial. And we actually had some people upset that they had uh, the real wreaths up top because they were not as beautiful and did not weather as well over the 6 weeks that they were on the ground as the artificial ones did. So my hat's off to Jake Faulkner at our cemetery and to David for doing this. I will be the first one to admit when they started talking about the idea in the spring last year, I said, oh, it sounds like a good idea. Let's shoot for 2025. And they're like, no, we got this idea. Let's do it this year. And they really pulled it together and it was absolutely fantastic. So I'm excited that not only are we honoring our veterans at the cemetery, but we continue to help our living veterans in the same breath with this. So it's absolutely fabulous.
Right. And all of you should know that the money that goes into that pot essentially is held separately. It's not commingled with IVN funds or anything else, but it's there to be able to help veterans all over the area. And we've helped people now here in the Treasure Valley. We've helped them back east. We're helping some folks up north. And if you have a need that you can't seem to, figure out, eventually, as we get through the kind of initial costs of putting this all together and start building that reservoir of funds, we will be able to help this deploy those funds and assist you if you have needs that you bring to us. So just keep that in the back of your minds. And finally, in 2024, IVN provided over $70,000 in direct financial aid, serving nearly 100 struggling veterans and their families. And I can't even begin to calculate the hundreds and hundreds of hours, maybe thousands of hours that have been spent by so many different people to help veterans and to do moves and to build ramps and to do all the things that we do. We have a number of people who help with all of these kinds of things, but we're always looking for more physical laborers, people who are able-bodied to help with moves or yard projects or other things that we do. So if you know of those kinds of resources, let us know, because we're trying to build a list now so that our team can have folks to call on when there are specific needs to kind of get physical out there and get our hands dirty. The last thing I'll ask is, anybody recognize this guy? Anybody? Somebody has to know this guy.
The BSU Veterans.
Yeah, that's John Hawbaker. So Mitzi alluded to a big announcement, and the big announcement is there's some changes at IVN. Many of you know that I had a heart attack last year, and it got my attention, I'll have to say. And so I have been interested in toward the end of last year and going into this year in kind of throttling back and finally actually being able to retire after leading IVN for about 3 years now. And So we started a search a couple of months ago to look for somebody who could replace me at IVN. And we were referred to John Hawbaker from a number of folks with very high recommendations. And we have actually extended that offer to John to be the executive director of IVN effective April 1st. While I transition with him through February and March, and then kind of slide back to an active participation on the board for a while. So John is out there now. He is starting to go out with me and meet folks and attend meetings and so forth. And we couldn't be more excited about bringing him on board. He's a career Army guy. He is the former BSU director of Veteran Service Center there. Came highly recommended by Ken Holliday, who is over at BSU. He has multiple advanced degrees. He's quite an academic, and he's currently involved in an MBA program, which precludes him from being here today. I wanted to introduce him and thought we would be doing this in person, but obviously we're not today. But you will be introduced to him at some future point when he can attend the meeting and maybe talk a little bit about his background. But John is going to be a great leader for IVN, and we're excited to have him. You'll be meeting him as I take him around, and he gets kind of plugged into the various things that we're doing. So we're really excited about that. IVN's in a great place right now to transition into the next era, and John's fully equipped to be able to lead us there. But I'm really excited about the fact that we've got a solid revenue stream in the Idaho Veterans REIS program. And again, if that goes as well as we believe it will, we should generate close to $100,000 every year that will be able to be deployed for the benefit of our veterans, and we couldn't be more excited about that. So that's all I had to share. I'll be around for a while and probably be at the next several meetings when we meet in person. So I'd love to connect with lots of you about this transition with John and be happy to introduce him to you. And that's all I've got, I think.
Hey, Dave.
If you want to contact us, here's some numbers. That's the IVN phone number at the top. You can contact me at my email address. John has an email address that's set up already for IVN, and it's active, so you can reach him there. And then you can reach us at our website at Idaho Veterans Guide or at the Wreath website. They're all individually operated. So any questions for me before I shut down?
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
This is Craig Hoyt. Just
Hey,
want to
Craig.
thank you for the great job you've done with this organization, man. Hats off to you, brother.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Dave?
I don't have a question, but I want to echo what he just said. What you've done with IVN has been incredible. I know with my organization, the VEA, I've appreciated the support and the kind words and everything that you've done for mutual members, and so you will be missed.
No, thank you. I'll still be around. As Shelley said about her impending retirement earlier, I'm not dying. I'm just I'm just stepping down. And I think the thing that I have to think about right now is just making sure that I'm watching my health and staying active and doing some of the things that I really need to do, and actually start acting like I'm retired rather than working all the time. So that's really the generator for this decision for me, and it's tough because I've really enjoyed the work that I've done here, and certainly enjoy the awesome people that I get to be around all the time. But there is a price to pay for being real busy, and I've got to kind of throttle that back. And so we're going to drop this in very, very good hands with John, and then make sure that our transition goes smoothly. So we appreciate all your support.
And really, without Marnie Bernard, Idaho Veterans Network, we would not all be here today with joining forces. That was born out of that incident with George Nickel. I like to tease George that if he had not gotten arrested, I would not have a job today, at least
Right.
in the field that I'm in. So, and we do joke about that because that's what we do as veterans and family members, and things kind of make light of those situations because sometimes they're too difficult to address head on. But that is what makes us all able to work together, is that dark humor sometimes.
Yep.
I have sat down with John a lot, and through this transition, I was nervous about it, and things, because IVN is really one of our backbone agencies for the entire state, as far as a go-to resource for veterans that I encounter, and just their reach in all the different areas that Dave talked about. So this was very important that we find the right person and we get it right the first time. So I can't wait for everybody to meet John, and for